I never expected to spend Christmas alone in my childhood home, staring at a hastily scribbled note from my parents. Morgan, we had to use your money to help Nathan. He's in serious trouble. We're staying at Allison's for the holidays. Saw the
$2,200.
my home down payment.
Gone.
The house was dark and cold, just like the realization that hit me. My family had betrayed me in the worst possible way. But I didn't cry. I laughed. Because deep down, I'd always known this day would come. What I didn't expect was the desperate phone call 3 days later that would change everything. Before I get into this wild story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever dealt with family financial drama, this one's for you. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want more stories about setting boundaries with family. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this all played out. My name is Morgan Davis, and at 28, I had finally reached a point in my life where things were coming together. After graduating with honors in computer science, I landed a software engineering job at a tech company in Seattle. The hours were long, the work was demanding, but after 4 years of dedication, I had saved $20,000 for a down payment on my first home. I was proud of myself. No one had handed me anything. Growing up in Oak Ridge, a small town in the Midwest where everyone knew everyone's business, hadn't been easy. My parents, Diana and Frank Davis, weren't bad people, but they had always favored my younger brother Nathan. 3 years my junior, Nathan was the golden child who could do no wrong. When he wanted the newest gaming console, somehow the money appeared. When I needed new glasses, I was told to wait until the next tax return. I put myself through college with scholarships, student loans, and working 2 jobs. Meanwhile, my parents paid for Nathan's tuition at a private university, which he dropped out of after 2 semesters. That pattern continued into adulthood. Nathan bounced between jobs, apartments, and relationships, while my parents provided a safety net each time he fell. Despite this, I maintained a relationship with my family. Weekly phone calls, birthday gifts, and annual visits during holidays. Last Christmas, I had skipped the family gathering to meet a major project deadline. My mother had made me feel guilty about it for months. So this year, I was determined to make it home, loaded with expensive gifts and hoped that maybe things would be different. Are you sure about going home? My best friend Stephanie had asked during our last coffee meetup before my trip. Your family has a way of making you feel terrible about your success. They're still my family, I had replied, stirring my latte absently. Besides, I miss the traditions. The tree, Mom's cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning, Dad's terrible jokes during gift opening. Stephanie gave me that look she always did when she thought I was being naive. Just promise me you'll walk away if it gets toxic. I promised, not knowing how prophetic her concerns would be. My mother knew about my savings. I had proudly told her during one of our calls that I was finally ready to buy a place of my own. She had seemed happy for me, asking questions about what kind of home I wanted. In retrospect, her interest had likely been calculating rather than supportive. 6 months earlier, I had set up a joint account with my mother. It was supposed to be for emergencies only, in case something happened to my parents and they needed immediate financial assistance. I had transferred $20,000 into that account, trusting that the emergency stipulation was understood. How foolish I had been. My flight to the Midwest had been uneventful. I spent most of it reviewing work documents and texting with Marcus, a colleague I'd recently started dating. The airport was decorated with holiday cheer, Christmas music playing over the speakers as I collected my luggage and headed to the rental car counter. The drive from the airport to my childhood home took about an hour. As I got closer to Oak Ridge, memories flooded back. The ice cream shop where I got my first job at 16. The library where I spent countless hours studying to maintain my GPA for scholarships. The park where I used to escape when family tensions ran high. It was already dark when I turned onto Pine Street. Most houses were decked out in colorful lights and decorations, except for one. My parents' 2-story colonial stood dark against the night sky.
No lights. No decorations.
My first indication that something was wrong. I pulled into the driveway, the headlights of my rental car illuminating the empty garage. My parents' car was missing. Strange. They knew I was arriving tonight. I had texted my mother from the airport. With growing unease, I grabbed my suitcase from the trunk and approached the front door. I still had my old key, which thankfully worked. The house was completely dark and silent as I stepped inside. "Mom?"
Dad.
I called out, flipping on the entryway light. No response. The house was cold, as if the heating had been turned down for days. I moved through the familiar rooms, turning on lights, calling for my family. The Christmas tree I had expected to see in the living room corner was notably absent. Setting my suitcase down, I checked my phone. No missed calls or messages. Something was definitely wrong. It wasn't until I reached the kitchen that I found the note, hastily scrawled on the back of an electric bill envelope, propped against a coffee maker. The kitchen was unnaturally clean. Usually, my mother would have been preparing for Christmas dinner, counters covered with ingredients and desserts in various stages of completion. Instead, it looked as if no one had cooked there in days. The calendar on the wall still showed November, though we were well into December. I picked up the envelope, immediately recognizing my mother's handwriting. My hands trembled slightly as I read. "Morgan, we had to use your money to help Nathan. He's in serious trouble. We're staying at Allison's for the holidays." That was it. No explanation of what kind of trouble. No mention of when they'd be back. No acknowledgement that they had taken my entire savings. Just sorry, as if they'd borrowed a sweater without asking. I read the note 3 times, hoping to find something I'd missed. Some indication that this was all a misunderstanding. But the sparse words remained unchanged. My first instinct was to call my mother. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried my father next with the same result. Finally, I called Nathan. His phone rang several times before disconnecting. Standing alone in my parents' kitchen, the magnitude of what had happened began to sink in. They had taken my money. All of it. The down payment I had worked nights and weekends for. The future I had planned. Gone to bail my brother out of yet another crisis. I should have cried. Anyone would have. But instead, a strange, hollow laugh escaped my lips. It started small, then grew until I was doubled over the kitchen counter, laughing so hard tears streamed down my face. Not sad tears. Angry ones. Because in some deep, honest part of myself, I had always known this would happen. The signs had been there all along. The constant bailouts for Nathan. The dismissal of my achievements. The subtle expectations that because I was doing well, I should help the family financially. I had just never expected such a blatant betrayal. Once the inappropriate laughter subsided, I went into problem-solving mode. First, I called my bank. It was after hours, but I left an urgent message about unauthorized withdrawals. Then I opened my banking app to assess the damage. There it was. A withdrawal of $20,000 from the joint account, made 3 days ago. My mother hadn't even waited for me to arrive before taking the money and leaving. The timing suggested they had planned this, knowing I would be arriving today, perhaps hoping to avoid a confrontation. I thought back to setting up that joint account. The bank manager had warned me about the risks, but I had brushed them off. "It's just for emergencies," I had explained. My parents would never abuse it.
How naive I had been.
The house felt like a mausoleum now, filled with ghosts of a family that perhaps had never truly existed the way I wanted to believe. I wandered through the rooms, looking for clues about what had happened with Nathan. What kind of trouble could justify stealing my future? In the living room, photo albums sat neatly on the bookshelf. Pictures of family vacations, school events, and holidays. In nearly every one, Nathan was center stage, with me hovering at the edges. Visual evidence of the family dynamic I had tried for years to pretend wasn't real. Upstairs, I passed my old bedroom, now converted into a home office. Nathan's room, however, showed signs of recent occupation. Clothes were strewn about, fast food wrappers piled in the trash. On his desk, I found something that made my blood run cold, official-looking papers from the county courthouse. I didn't read them in detail, but phrases like gambling debts and failure to appear jumped out at me. So that's what this was about. Nathan had gambling problems. Serious ones, apparently. In my parents' room, more clues emerged. Their closet was half empty, suitcases missing. They had packed for an extended stay. On my father's nightstand, I found prescription bottles for anxiety medication and blood pressure. New prescriptions I hadn't known about. By midnight, I had pieced together a rough picture. Nathan had gotten himself into gambling debt. My parents had emptied their own savings to help him, then turned to my money when that wasn't enough. Rather than face me, they had fled to my cousin Allison's house in Illinois. I sat on the edge of my parents' bed, physically and emotionally exhausted. My Christmas plans were ruined, my savings gone, and my family had abandoned me without even having the courage to tell me to my face. Tomorrow, I would figure out what to do. For now, I needed sleep. I returned to my old bedroom, cleared off the desk that now occupied the space where my bed had once been, and set up my laptop. At least I could get some work done while figuring out this mess. Before going to sleep on the living room couch, I sent one text to my parents. I know what you did. We need to talk. I woke up disoriented, momentarily forgetting where I was. The familiar ceiling of my parents' living room came into focus, and with it, the memory of yesterday's discovery. My neck was stiff from the couch, and the house was freezing. I checked the thermostat and found it set to 55 degrees. Another sign of my parents' hasty departure and possible financial troubles. After a hot shower and cup of coffee, I began a more methodical exploration of the house. The fridge contained mostly condiments and a few wilted vegetables. The mail had piled up on the side table in the hallway, including several envelopes marked urgent and final notice. I sorted through them, setting aside anything that looked important. Around noon, I called Stephanie. They did what? She exclaimed after I explained the situation. Morgan, that's theft. Technically, it was a joint account, I replied, pacing the kitchen. Legally, she had access. Morally, it's still theft, Stephanie insisted. Have you talked to them yet? They're not answering my calls. I'm going to try Allison next, but I wanted to gather more information first. What are you going to do? Are you coming back to Seattle? I paused, considering. Not yet. I need to understand what happened, and I need to confront them face to face. After hanging up with Stephanie, I called Aaron, a law school friend who had helped me with legal questions in the past. Unfortunately, joint accounts are problematic, he confirmed after hearing my story. Any party on the account has legal access to the funds. Your best bet might be small claims court, but that would mean suing your own parents. The thought made my stomach turn. What about Nathan? If he received stolen money? That gets complicated, Aaron said. It depends on whether he knew the source of the funds. But family court cases are messy, Morgan. Think carefully before going that route. I thanked him and promised to keep him updated. Next, I called my bank again and spoke with a representative who confirmed what Aaron had said. Since my mother was on the account, the withdrawal was technically authorized. My only recourse was to close the joint account and open a new one solely in my name, which I did immediately. The afternoon was spent going through drawers and cabinets, looking for anything that might explain Nathan's situation. In my father's desk, I found a folder containing loan applications, all declined. Another folder held medical bills with payment plans. The most telling discovery was a shoebox in their closet containing Nathan's gambling receipts from various casinos, some dating back years, along with IOUs to people with only first names. I also found empty liquor bottles hidden in various places throughout the house. Some in my father's workshop, others in my mother's craft supplies. Signs of a household under severe stress. By evening, I had compiled a disturbing picture. My parents, approaching retirement age, had depleted their savings helping Nathan with his gambling addiction. They had taken loans against their house, which explained the foreclosure notice I'd found in the mail. When Nathan's debts became too much, they had turned to my savings as a last resort. I considered driving to Allison's house in Illinois, about 6 hours away, but decided against it. They had chosen to run rather than face me. Let them stew in that decision for a while. Instead, I ordered takeout from my favorite local restaurant and spent the evening securing my finances. I closed all joint accounts, changed passwords, and put a freeze on my credit. Never again would I leave myself financially vulnerable to family. That night, as I tried to sleep, my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "I'm sorry. It's complicated. Please don't hate Mom and Dad." I didn't respond. Christmas Eve morning dawned gray and snowy. I woke early, still on Seattle time, and made coffee in the quiet kitchen. The absence of holiday preparations was jarring. No Christmas tree.
No presents.
No family. On impulse, I bundled up and walked to the small grocery store a few blocks away. I bought ingredients for a simple Christmas dinner, a small tabletop tree, and a few decorations. If I was going to be alone for Christmas, I would at least make it pleasant. As I was checking out, I ran into Mrs. Wilson, my former high school English teacher. "Morgan, I heard you were coming home for Christmas. How lovely to see you," she said, her kind eyes crinkling. "How are your parents doing? We've been worried about them." "Worried?" I asked, suddenly alert. Mrs. Wilson lowered her voice. "Well, with everything happening with Nathan and your father's health, but I shouldn't gossip. I'm sure they've told you everything." I nodded noncommittally, and she continued shopping, leaving me with more questions. Back at the house, I set up the small tree and made myself lunch. As I ate, I called my cousin Allison. To my surprise, she answered. "Morgan," she said, her voice cautious. "I was wondering when you'd call." "Where are my parents, Allison? What's going on with Nathan?" She sighed deeply. "They're here. They arrived 3 days ago, pretty shaken up. Nathan got involved with some bad people, Morgan. Gambling debts to the kind of guys who don't just take you to court. So they stole my savings," I said flatly. "They see it as borrowing," Allison replied, though I could hear the disapproval in her voice. "I told them they should have talked to you first. Can I talk to them? They went out with my husband to meet someone about Nathan's situation. I'll tell them you called. Tell them I know everything and we need to talk. Soon." After hanging up, I decided to get out of the house. I drove around Oak Ridge, visiting old haunts and thinking about my childhood. As the day faded into evening, I found myself in front of Harold and Elaine Carpenter's house, our next-door neighbors for my entire childhood. On impulse, I knocked. Elaine answered, her face lighting up with recognition. "Morgan, what a wonderful surprise." "Harold, look who's here." They invited me in for hot chocolate, their home warm and festively decorated, a stark contrast to my parents' house. "We've been so worried about your parents," Elaine confided as she served Christmas cookies. "Your father's been looking unwell, and your mother, well, she hasn't been to book club in months. And Nathan moving back in didn't help matters," Harold added, shaking his head. Strange cars at all hours, arguments we could hear through the walls. They shared what they knew. Nathan had moved back home about 6 months ago after losing his apartment. He'd been working at the local casino but was fired for reasons unknown. Strange men had come looking for him several times, pounding on the door late at night. Then 3 days ago, they all left in a hurry. Elaine finished. "We thought maybe they were joining you somewhere for Christmas." I thanked them for the information and declined their kind invitation to join their family for Christmas dinner. I needed time alone to process everything. Christmas Day arrived with fresh snow and silence. I spent the morning working remotely, grateful for the distraction. In the afternoon, I prepared my small holiday meal and video called with Stephanie and a few other Seattle friends, putting on a brave face. After dinner, I found myself looking through old photo albums again. Pictures of happier times. My 5th birthday, before Nathan was born, when I had my parents' undivided attention. Family camping trips where, despite the constant focus on Nathan, we had shared genuine moments of connection. It was while examining these photos that I had an epiphany. The pattern of enabling Nathan hadn't started recently. It had been there all along. From excusing his tantrums as a child to covering for his missed assignments in high school to now, apparently, paying off dangerous gambling debts. And I had my own pattern, trying to earn their approval through achievement, then feeling hurt when it wasn't acknowledged, but still coming back for more. It was time to break both cycles. The call came on December 28th, 3 days after Christmas. I was sitting at my father's desk, working remotely and planning my return to Seattle, when my phone lit up with my mother's number. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something told me I should answer. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Morgan." My mother's voice was strained, almost unrecognizable. "Thank God you answered. We need your help."
No epaledi.
No acknowledgement of what they had done.
Just straight to needing more help.
"I think you've gotten enough of my help already," I replied coldly. $20,000 worth, to be exact. "Please, just listen," my mother pleaded. "We're in trouble. Serious trouble." Despite my anger, concern crept in. "What kind of trouble?" "The money, it wasn't enough." Her voice cracked. "Nathan's debts were more than we thought. These people, they're threatening us now. They came to Allison's house. They know where we are." I sat up straighter. "What people? What exactly is going on?" My father came on the line then. "Morgan, it's bad. Nathan got involved with some loan sharks. Gambling debts. We thought we could pay them off with the money we borrowed from you." He at least had the decency to hesitate at the word borrowed. "But it wasn't enough. I finished for him." "No," he admitted. "They're saying he owes another $30,000. They've threatened to hurt him, to hurt all of us if we don't pay." "Have you gone to the police?" "We can't." My mother was back on the line, her voice rising with panic. "These people have connections. They said they'd know if we went to the authorities." I pinched the bridge of my nose, fighting back a headache. "So, what exactly are you asking me to do?" There was a pause, then my mother spoke, her voice small but expectant. "We need to borrow more money, honey, just until we can figure things out." The audacity was breathtaking. They had taken my home down payment without asking, disappeared without explanation, and now wanted more? "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "You stole my savings, and now you want me to give you more money?" "We didn't steal," my mother protested. "It was an emergency. Nathan's life was in danger. And you didn't think to call me? To explain? To ask? You just took it and ran." "There wasn't time," my father interjected. "And we knew you'd say no." At least he was honest about that part. "You're right. I would have said no. Because this isn't helping Nathan, it's enabling him. Again. Just like you've always done." "That's not fair," my mother said. "No. What's not fair is expecting me to clean up a mess I didn't create. What's not fair is taking my money without permission. What's not fair is calling me now, not to apologize, but to ask for more." There was silence on the other end. Then I heard muffled voices, and suddenly Nathan was on the phone. "Morgan, please," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I screwed up, I know that. But these guys, they're serious. They've already roughed me up once as a warning." His voice broke. "Imskarat sis." I closed my eyes, fighting the instinct to cave. Nathan had always been able to pull at my heartstrings, even when I knew he was manipulating me. "Why should I believe you, Nathan? You've been lying to everyone for years about your gambling." I know, he said quickly. "I've been an idiot. But I swear I want to change. I just need to get out from under this debt. Then I'll get help, real help." "You said that the last time and the time before that. This time is different. I promise. Please, Morgan. If not for me, then for Mom and Dad. They don't deserve to be in danger because of my mistakes." That was low, even for Nathan. Using our parents as leverage. "I need time to think," I said finally. "I'll call you back." "We don't have time," my mother exclaimed, apparently having taken the phone back. "These men said they'd be back tomorrow for their money, or else." "Or else what?" "They didn't say exactly, but one of them had a gun, Morgan." "A gun? Your father's heart can't take this kind of stress. His doctor said another major event could trigger a heart attack." This was the first I'd heard of my father having heart problems, but given the prescription bottles I'd found, it was probably true. 24 hours, I said firmly. "I need 24 hours to figure things out. I'll call you tomorrow." "But Morgan, 24 hours or I don't help at all." And put Dad back on the phone. There was shuffling, then my father's gruff voice. "Morgan, Dad, is what Mom said true? About your heart?" He sighed heavily. "I had a minor heart attack 6 months ago. Didn't want to worry you with it. Another secret kept from me. And these threats? Are they real? As real as anything I've ever seen, he replied solemnly. These aren't people who bluff, sweetheart. The use of his old term of endearment for me almost broke my resolve. Almost. I'll call tomorrow, I repeated. But listen to me carefully. I'm not just going to hand over more money. If I help, it will be on my terms. Do you understand? We don't have a choice, do we? He said, a hint of resentment in his voice.
No, Dad.
You don't. Not anymore. You lost that privilege when you took my money, without asking. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Part of me was still angry enough to walk away, to let them face the consequences of their actions. But another part, the part that still loved them despite everything, couldn't bear the thought of them in genuine danger. I needed advice from someone who wasn't emotionally involved. I called Dr. Rachel Winters, my therapist in Seattle. This is a classic case of emotional blackmail, she said after I explained the situation. They're using fear, obligation, and guilt to manipulate you into giving them what they want. But what if the danger is real? It may very well be. That doesn't change the fact that they're asking you to sacrifice yourself to fix a problem they help create. So what do I do? Just abandon them? That's not what I'm suggesting, Dr. Rachel said gently. But throwing money at the problem without addressing the underlying issues won't help anyone in the long run, including Nathan. By the end of our call, I had the beginnings of a plan. One that would address the immediate danger while also forcing my family to confront the dysfunctional patterns that had led us here. I spent the rest of the day making calls. To Aaron, my lawyer friend, about legal options. To a colleague whose brother had overcome a gambling addiction, asking about rehabilitation programs. To my bank, about liquidating some investments. By evening, I had a comprehensive plan. It wouldn't be easy, and my family wouldn't like most of it. But for the first time in days, I felt a sense of control. Just before midnight, I received another text from Nathan. Did you decide? They're coming tomorrow afternoon. I didn't respond. Let them worry for a change. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned on the couch, my mind racing between anger at my family's betrayal and fear for their safety. Was I being too harsh? Or not harsh enough? The weight of the decision pressed down on me like a physical presence. Around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and opened my laptop. I spent the early morning hours researching gambling addiction, enablement, and family dynamics. What I found confirmed what I had already begun to suspect. My family was trapped in a cycle of codependency that had been building for years. Nathan's gambling wasn't just his problem. It was a family disease, with my parents as unwitting enablers and me as the designated rescuer whenever things got too bad. Breaking that cycle wouldn't be easy, and it certainly wouldn't happen by simply writing another check. At 7 a.m., I made a video call to Jessica and Brandon, my college friends who had always seen my family situation more clearly than I could. First of all, it's not your job to fix this, Jessica said firmly. She had always been protective of me, especially when it came to my family. They created this mess by enabling Nathan for years. Brandon, more measured as always, leaned forward. But I understand why you feel responsible, Morgan. They're your family. Just be careful not to get pulled into their chaos. I'm trying to find a middle ground, I explained. Help them with the immediate danger, without continuing the pattern. That's wise, Brandon nodded. Conditional help with clear boundaries. Boundaries they'll try to cross at every opportunity, Jessica added skeptically. They were both right, and their perspectives helped solidify my resolve. After the call, I reached out to Patricia, my mentor for my first tech job. She had gone through something similar with her brother years ago. The hardest part, Patricia told me over the phone, was accepting that I couldn't save my brother from himself. All I could do was offer him tools to save himself, if he chose to use them. Did he choose to use them? I asked. There was a pause. Eventually, after hitting rock bottom a few more times. But when he finally did commit to recovery, having those resources already in place made a difference. By mid-morning, I had contacted 3 reputable gambling addiction treatment centers. all with immediate openings due to post-holiday cancellations. I had also spoken with a financial advisor about structuring payments in a way that would ensure the money went directly to treatment, not into Nathan's or my parents' hands. The final piece of my plan came together after a call with a family counselor who specialized in addiction dynamics. She provided resources for my parents and recommended a structured intervention approach. At noon, exactly 24 hours after their desperate call, I phoned my parents. My mother answered on the first ring. "Morgan? Thank God. These men will be here in 2 hours. Did you decide? Can you help us?" "I can help," I said carefully. "But not in the way you're expecting." "What does that mean?" The anxiety in her voice was palpable. "It means I'm not just going to transfer money into your account. I have a plan that addresses both the immediate threat and the underlying problems." "Morgan, we don't have time for whatever this is. Nathan's life is in danger. Put me on speakerphone. I want to talk to everyone at once." There was reluctance in her sigh, but I heard the change in audio quality. That meant she had complied. I could now hear background noises, my father's heavy breathing, Nathan's nervous pacing. "I've made arrangements to pay off Nathan's debt," I began. The collective sigh of relief was audible. But I continued before they could celebrate. "That's only the first step. I'm not just going to hand over the money and walk away this time." "What do you mean?" my father asked, suspicion creeping into his voice. "I mean, I've arranged for Nathan to enter an inpatient treatment program for gambling addiction for a minimum of 90 days. "I can't do that," Nathan protested immediately. "I have a job interview next week, and I was going to move into a new apartment." "Those are lies, Nathan, and we all know it." I cut him off. "You haven't held a job in over a year, and no landlord would rent to you, with your credit history." The stunned silence told me I had hit the mark. "The treatment center is in Minneapolis," I continued. "I've already paid the deposit. They're expecting you tomorrow." "And if I refuse?" Nathan challenged. "Then you're on your own with your debt. I won't force you into treatment, but I won't enable you to continue destroying your life and dragging our parents down with you." My mother began to protest, but I pressed on. "There's more. I've also arranged for family counseling. For all of us, including me, because this isn't just Nathan's problem. It's a family dynamic that we've all participated in." "Now, wait a minute," my father began, his defensive tone all too familiar.
No, Dad.
"I'm done waiting. I'm done pretending that our family is functional when it's not. I'm done being the emergency backup plan whenever Nathan screws up." "That's not fair," my mother interjected. "What's not fair is stealing my savings without even talking to me first." I shot back, my composure slipping momentarily. I took a deep breath. "Look, I'm trying to help, really help, not just put a Band-Aid on the problem until the next crisis." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, surprisingly, it was Nathan who spoke. "How would it work?" he asked quietly. "The treatment thing." The vulnerability in his voice caught me off guard. For the first time, I heard genuine fear rather than manipulation. "You check in tomorrow afternoon. The program includes individual therapy, group sessions, and financial counseling. They have a good success rate, Nathan. But it only works if you're committed to change." "And the debt?" my father asked. "These men are coming today. I've already spoken with Aaron, my lawyer friend. He's handling the payment through a third party. The debt will be cleared, with documentation proving it's been paid in full. But Nathan has to agree to treatment first." More silence. I could almost feel them looking at each other, weighing their options. "What about your money?" my mother asked finally. "The money we took." At least she didn't say borrowed this time. "That's a separate issue," I said firmly. "One we'll address in family counseling. But I want to be clear. I'm not doing this to be paid back. I'm doing it because despite everything, I love you all, and I don't want to see you in danger. But this is the last time I bail anyone out. Ever." The tension in the silence was thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, Nathan spoke again. "Okay," he said, his voice small. "I'll go to treatment. I don't have a choice, do I?" "You always have a choice, Nathan. This is just the first time the choice has real consequences either way." We spent the next hour working out the logistics. Aaron would meet with the loan sharks to pay off the debt, with documentation that would protect Nathan from future claims. I would drive to Illinois the next morning to take Nathan to the treatment center. My parents would begin family counseling sessions, both with Nathan and separately. As the call ended, my mother's voice came through, no longer on speaker. "Morgan? Thank you. I know we don't deserve your help after what we did." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd received, and though insufficient, it was a start. "You're right. You don't deserve it," I replied honestly. But that's the thing about family. Sometimes we help each other even when it's not deserved. After hanging up, the emotional toll of the past few days caught up with me all at once. I curled up on the couch and finally allowed myself to cry. Not just for the lost money or the ruined Christmas, but for the family I had always wanted but never truly had. Yet amid the tears, there was also a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this crisis, painful as it was, could be the catalyst for real change. Not just for Nathan, but for all of us. The 6-hour drive to Illinois the next morning gave me plenty of time to rehearse what I would say to my family face-to-face. I had arranged for Aaron to meet with Nathan's creditors that afternoon, armed with cashier's checks and legal documents protecting Nathan from future claims. The treatment center in Minneapolis was expecting us the following day. It was nearly 2 p.m. when I pulled into Cousin Allison's driveway. Her house was a modest 2-story in a quiet suburb of Chicago. Under different circumstances, it would have been a pleasant family visit. Allison greeted me at the door with a sympathetic hug. "They're in the living room," she whispered. "It's been tense." I nodded, steeling myself for the confrontation ahead. As I entered the living room, 3 pairs of eyes turned to me. My mother rose immediately, moving as if to embrace me, but stopped when she saw my expression. "Morgan," she said, her voice wavering between relief and apprehension. "You came." I said I would. I remained standing, surveying the room. My father looked older than I remembered, his face drawn with stress. Nathan sat hunched in an armchair, avoiding my gaze. A fading bruise marked his left cheekbone, lending credibility to his claim about being roughed up. "Aaron is meeting with the creditors right now," I informed them, deliberately using the euphemism rather than calling them what they were, loan sharks. "He'll call when it's done." "Thank you for doing this," my father said gruffly. "We know it's a lot to ask." "It's more than a lot," I replied evenly. "It's everything I had saved for my future."
And you didn't even ask.
The accusation hung in the air. My mother flinched, and my father looked away. "We were desperate," my mother finally said. "Nathan came to us saying these men were going to hurt him if he didn't pay. We'd already given him all our savings, taken a second mortgage." "I know," I interrupted. "I found the paperwork at the house." "What I don't understand is why you didn't call me, explain the situation." "Would you have given us the money if we had?" my father challenged. "Probably not," I admitted. "At least not without conditions. Like the ones I'm imposing now." Nathan finally looked up. "About that, I've been thinking. Maybe outpatient treatment would be better. I could still look for work, start paying everyone back." "That's not an option, Nathan." I cut him off. "Inpatient treatment was part of our agreement. If you've changed your mind, I can call Aaron right now and tell him to cancel the payment." "No," Nathan exclaimed, panic flashing across his face.
"No, I'll go."
"I just thought." "You thought you could manipulate the situation, like always," I finished for him. "That's exactly why you need structured treatment. Your gambling isn't just an addiction, it's a symptom of deeper issues." Cousin Allison, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, spoke up. "Morgan's right, Nathan. I've watched this pattern for years. You get into trouble, your parents bail you out, you promise to change, and then it happens all over again." It was validating to have someone else in the family acknowledge the dysfunction. My mother twisted her hands anxiously. "We were just trying to help him. What were we supposed to do, let those men hurt him?" "You were supposed to help him get real help, not just throw money at the problem," I replied. "And you definitely weren't supposed to steal my savings to do it." "We didn't steal." My father began defensively. Yes, you did. I interrupted, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Taking money without permission is stealing, Dad. The fact that Mom's name was on the account makes it legal, but not ethical. Not moral. And certainly not what family does to family. The room fell silent. My father's face reddened, but he didn't argue further. I've been enabling this situation too, I continued, softening my tone slightly. By always being the responsible one, the successful one, the one who could be counted on in a crisis. I set myself up as the family safety net. That ends now. I pulled out a folder containing the documentation for Nathan's treatment program and placed it on the coffee table. This is a 90-day inpatient program specializing in gambling addiction. It includes individual therapy, group counseling, and financial management training. It's one of the best in the country. Nathan picked up the brochure, examining it with reluctance, but also a hint of curiosity. What if it doesn't work? He asked quietly. It was the first time I'd heard genuine vulnerability from him, rather than calculated manipulation. Treatment is just the beginning, I acknowledged. Recovery is a lifelong process. But this program has a good success rate, and they offer aftercare support. My mother reached for the brochure next. It's so far away. We won't be able to visit often. That's intentional, I explained. Part of Nathan's recovery involves breaking codependent family patterns. Which brings me to the next part of the plan. I produced another folder, this one containing information about family therapy. I've arranged for family counseling. For all of us. Nathan will have family sessions as part of his treatment program, but Mom and Dad, you'll be starting with a therapist here in Chicago next week. I'll join via video call. Therapy, my father scoffed. We don't need some stranger telling us how to be a family. Clearly we do, I countered. Because what we've been doing isn't working. Look at where we are, Dad. Look at what this has cost all of us. Before he could respond, my phone rang. It was Aaron. It's done, he said when I answered. Debt paid in full, with documentation. These guys weren't happy about the third-party payment, but the money spoke louder than their objections. Nathan's in the clear, legally speaking. I thanked him and relayed the news to my family. The relief in the room was palpable, but I wasn't finished. The debt is paid, but we're not done, I said firmly. Nathan leaves for treatment tomorrow. I'll drive him there myself. Mom and Dad, you have your first therapy appointment on Tuesday. And what about your money? My mother asked hesitantly. How can we ever repay you? You can't, not completely, I said honestly. But that's not what matters now. What matters is breaking this cycle once and for all. My father, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. I never wanted it to come to this. I didn't know what else to do. He's my son. I know, Dad. And I'm your daughter. But you've been so focused on saving Nathan that you haven't seen how it's destroying everyone, including him. Nathan abruptly stood up and left the room. I heard the back door slam a moment later. Should someone go after him? My mother worried. No, I said firmly. He needs to process this on his own. For once, let him face his feelings without rescuing him from them. We spent the next hour discussing the logistics of the treatment program and what would happen afterward. Nathan wouldn't be returning to my parents' house after treatment. Part of his recovery would involve living independently with appropriate support systems in place. When Nathan finally returned, his eyes were red but clearer somehow, as if a decision had been made. I'll do the program, he said, his voice steadier than before. All of it. Not just because I have to, but because I want to.
I'm tired, Morgan.
Tired of running, tired of lying, tired of being afraid all the time. It was the most honest thing I'd ever heard him say. It won't be easy, I warned him. I know, but it can't be harder than this. He gestured vaguely, encompassing not just the current crisis, but the years of chaos his addiction had created. That evening, we had dinner together as a family. It wasn't the Christmas gathering I had imagined, but there was something raw and real about it that all our previous carefully orchestrated holiday meals had lacked. The next morning, Nathan and I set off for Minneapolis. The 3-hour drive was mostly silent at first, both of us lost in our own thoughts. "Why are you doing this?" Nathan finally asked as we crossed the Minnesota state line. "After what we did to you, why help at all?" I considered the question carefully. "Because you're my brother. Because despite everything, I love you. And because I believe people can change if they really want to." "Do you think I can?" he asked, vulnerability evident in his voice. "I think you have a better chance now than ever before," I replied honestly. "You've hit bottom, Nathan. The only way from here is up." When we arrived at the treatment center, a sprawling campus with well-maintained grounds, Nathan grew quiet again. As we checked in and completed the paperwork, I could sense his anxiety rising. "I'm scared," he admitted as we stood outside the residential building where he would be living for the next 3 months. "That's good," I told him. "Fear means you understand the seriousness of what's happening. Use it as motivation." As we said goodbye, Nathan did something unexpected. He hugged me, tight and genuine, without the usual performative aspect his affection typically carried. "I'm going to make this right," he whispered. "Somehow, I'm going to make this right." I didn't make promises or offer platitudes. Instead, I simply said, "Call me when you can. I'll be checking in with your counselors." Driving away from the treatment center, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Sadness for the family we had been, hope for the family we might become, and a new sense of peace with the boundaries I had established. That night, in a hotel halfway back to Chicago, I called Stephanie to update her. "So what happens now?" she asked after I'd filled her in. "Now we see if real change is possible," I replied. "For all of us." "And your money?" I sighed. "Some of it might come back eventually. But honestly, if this leads to actual healing, it might be the best investment I've ever made." 2 days later, I was on a plane back to Seattle, leaving behind a family in transition. My parents had attended their first therapy session, reporting that it was uncomfortable but necessary. Nathan had called briefly from treatment, sounding tired but determined. As for me, I was returning to my life with depleted savings, but a stronger sense of self. The boundaries I had established weren't just for my family's benefit, but for my own. For too long, I had defined myself in relation to their needs and problems. Now I was reclaiming my own path. It would be months before I knew whether the interventions I had put in place would create lasting change. Family systems don't transform overnight. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt like we were all finally moving in the right direction. Summer in Seattle brought long, sun-filled days that seemed to wash away the darkness of that Christmas nightmare. 6 months had passed since I had driven Nathan to the treatment center, 6 months of cautious rebuilding and redefined boundaries. I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, smaller than the home I had originally planned to buy, but mine nonetheless. After the financial hit of paying off Nathan's debts and his treatment program, I had adjusted my expectations. The apartment was in an up-and-coming neighborhood, with security measures that gave me peace of mind. No joint accounts, no spare keys given to family members, no financial vulnerability. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. 120 days sober today. Still taking it one day at a time. Thank you for saving my life. I smiled, typing back a simple congratulation. Nathan had completed the 90-day inpatient program and transitioned to a sober living house in Minneapolis. He was working a steady job at a local grocery store, attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings 3 times a week, and maintaining regular contact with his sponsor. Small steps, but significant ones. My parents had surprised me the most. After initial resistance, they had embraced family therapy with unexpected commitment. My father, particularly, had experienced what his therapist called a perspective shift, finally seeing how his enabling behavior had contributed to Nathan's addiction. "I thought I was protecting him," he had admitted during one of our video therapy sessions. "But I was really protecting myself from the pain of watching him fail." The family's financial situation remained precarious. They had sold their house to pay off the second mortgage and other debts, moving into a modest apartment. My mother had returned to work part-time at the local library, something she had talked about for years, but never done while caring for Nathan. Through Aaron's legal assistance, we had recovered about $5,000 of my stolen money, a fraction of what was taken but a symbolic acknowledgement of the wrong done. My parents had set up a payment plan to gradually repay the rest, though I had made it clear that their recovery was more important than the money. The phone rang, interrupting my reflections. It was Jessica, calling to confirm our dinner plans. "Still on for tonight?" she asked. "Brandon and Alicia are already at the restaurant saving our table." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. After returning to Seattle, I had made a conscious effort to strengthen my local support system, spending more time with friends who valued me for myself, not for what I could provide. As I prepared to leave for dinner, I paused to look at the vision board I had created during a self-care workshop. It featured images of professional goals, travel destinations, and the word boundaries in bold letters at the center. No longer was my identity tied to being the family rescuer. Dr. Rachel had helped me understand that maintaining boundaries wasn't selfish, but necessary for healthy relationships. "You can love someone without sacrificing yourself," she had reminded me during our sessions. The restaurant was bustling when I arrived, my friends waving from a corner table. As I joined them, sharing laughter and stories, I realized how much fuller my life had become since establishing healthier boundaries with my family. "Morgan, you seem different lately," Brandon observed as we finished our meal. "More present." "I feel different," I acknowledged. "Like I'm finally living my life instead of reacting to everyone else's crises." My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. "Dad and I completed our 12-week family program today. The counselor says we've made real progress. We miss you." I typed back. "Proud of you both. Let's video chat this weekend." Our relationship was different now. More honest, more bounded, but in many ways more authentic than the enmeshed dysfunction we had called family before. The road ahead would not be easy. Nathan's recovery would be a lifelong journey with potential setbacks. My parents were still learning new patterns after decades of codependency. And I was still healing from the betrayal, still learning to trust again. But for the first time, I felt hopeful about our family's future. Not the idealized version I had clung to for years, but a realistic one where we related to each other as adults, with respect for boundaries and acknowledgement of past hurts. As I walked home through the summer evening, I reflected on the painful Christmas that had changed everything. The empty house, the shocking note, the betrayal that had finally forced us all to confront our dysfunctional patterns. Sometimes it takes losing everything to gain something more valuable: truth, authenticity, and the courage to change. 1 year had passed since that life-changing Christmas, and while the wound had healed, the scar remained as a reminder of how easily trust can be broken and how hard it is to rebuild. Yet that scar also represented growth, resilience, and the strength to set boundaries even with those we love most. My parents hadn't stolen just my money, they had stolen my illusions about our family. And painful as it was, that might have been the greatest gift they could have given me. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did you balance love with self-protection? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content about family dynamics and personal growth. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to establish clear boundaries. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps those of you navigating your own complicated family relationships. Stay strong and take care of yourselves.